Okay, hey folks, Steve here with another Nations in Arms video. We're going to be looking at the actual spring activation phase of 1793. And I think what we'll do, the last several videos have been like an hour and a half long. I don't see a reason to keep going that way. I think what we'll do is we'll switch to a more abbreviated format, where we'll pull the chit, we'll see what the impulse marker is, maybe spend a couple seconds talking about which leaders can or will activate, and then I'll do all the activations. Then the combat's off camera. We'll show the results, and we'll keep going in that cadence that I'm sure some of you folks are used to. That will hopefully keep the videos a little bit shorter so that you're not here, like a Lord of the Rings movie, forever, and you get to see just the flow of the game from here, because I think you've seen enough of the mechanics that we understand how the game works, right? Um, the one exception will be, what we've not done a whole lot of is show naval stuff. So when we get to a point in the game where we're going to have some naval activity, I will show that in more detail on camera, and I may even put the fact that we're doing that in the video title header. So if you're not watching every single one of these videos, and I can't imagine that anyone would, just based on time constraints, but I know some folks out there really do like it, and will watch them all, and I really appreciate that. Um, if you kind of want to wait until new mechanics matter, hopefully the video titles will help with that. So, with that, we're going to look at the spring activation phase again. We did diplomacy in the last video. We did the card play at the beginning of the interphase, where we're not going to do that again. We're not going to have a second card play in the activate right prior to the activation phase, I guess I should say. Um, Regarding winter quarters, so for this one, it does have a little bit of a difference. So this is a spring season. So what we're going to do is ignore the first two times the winter quarters marker is drawn, and when the third one is done, uh, the third one is drawn, third time it's drawn, then the turn is over. Um, let's see. Provided both non-neutral naval markers have been drawn. If not, a naval impulse is performed by the side which has not played its naval marker, and if both have not had their naval markers played, then the French player will play theirs first, effectively. So there's a possibility that the turn could end somewhat quickly, but they're going to make sure that we all, both players can do naval stuff. But when I think of like the third time, like gosh, the third time, it's not like there's only a small chance of drawing at any given draw, and that gets better over time. But gosh, by the third time we're drawing it, we've got to be towards the end of the activation phase anyway for this one. But this is accommodating, maybe some, a rainy spring, or a late thaw, and the weather just slows things down. So we'll get the cup prepared, and we'll start drawing chits. All right, we got our chit cup ready. We're going to draw to see who goes first. I do think who goes first matters a lot, because you can potentially knock your opponent off balance, demoralize them, and all of that. So I think it's definitely advantageous. Whoever goes first feels that way. Sufficiently shuffled up, and what we get? Empire Land 4, which, the reality is I'm not sure. We do have an activation. Okay. So our activations are going to be for Kleber down here, which unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do much, just because the Spanish have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 steps to 2 would be a pretty nasty bloodbath. So the most that he could do is maybe try to run somewhere and grab some help, or um, maybe he comes over here, knocks out that rebel unit, and I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe we don't move him at all. I'll have to see. what we want to do there. But the other activation that's really going to matter, and matter probably a whole lot more, is that we're going to activate Hook with I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but with our French army up here, way up here in the north. It's kind of far away for you guys to see. Um, and then the other thing, oh gosh, I forgot to point this out, guys. Um, because Flanders is considered annexed national territory, uh, I actually had the army of Wurmser here, one of the big Austrian armies, show up in Flanders. I believe that was legal and able to be done. So rather than have him start over in Salzburg, I realized I could have had him set up here. So the Bohemian Army marker and the leader, the commanding general Wurmser, is up here in Flanders. So it does continue to make the sort of the Belgium campaign highly intense because there are now two armies, and really the French are outnumbered. So with this first activation, we'll have to see what can be done to save the day. I'm a little nervous and cautious about that. All right, so the Empire land four, really the French land four marker, done. We did not move Kleber. I think what we're going to have him do is try to avoid combat and shadow Ricardos's force if he enters France. Maybe try to do something like cutting his guys out of supply eventually, or something. I'm not sure, but he can't stand against this whole army. It's just not going to work. Um, and so I don't know how to solve this problem in the south yet. In the north, though, the French have enjoyed great success. There was a Prussian force in the swamp, and they could not avoid combat over the unbridged river. And the contact area of the army in the ZOC, or zone of influence, I can't remember what term the game uses, but armies have ZOCs, army workers do, which meant that we kind of trapped these Prussians and we attacked them, we eliminated them without losing a step. So this is where I think the main benefit of the army starts to come in, where you have a ZOC, effectively a ZOC, whatever you want to call it, but then you can put a ton of steps into a stack, more than you ordinarily would be able to, and then you can find these smaller stacks, and you can usually start getting close to 2-1 or 3-1 odds. And in this case, it was 3-1 odds, and that just makes the die roll modifiers that much easier to operate with. And so we did have over the course of a couple battles some wounded French leaders, but that entire Prussian stack was eliminated. Then we had the Austrian stack in front of Wurmser, and the French moved in and attacked. Now, uh, Wurmser tried to intercept, failed intercept. Then the stack tried to avoid combat, failed to avoid combat. And I rolled low, which I wasn't expecting. I would have thought they should be able to avoid combat into Wurmser's hex pretty easily, but they failed that. And then the march to guns check, Wurmser failed that. And so the French were able, I mean, very lucky, were able to get in there, have another combat. The Austrians managed to do one step loss to the French, but they eliminated that Austrian stack. And where it stands right now, I think Wurmser's army against Hoke's army, I think the French have the advantage. Now there's some friendlies nearby that could shift the balance a little bit, but for a starting show, I think the French have done well to eliminate two stacks. I mean, they eliminated basically 6 steps for the loss of one step, and that definitely changes the balance of strength on the board a little bit out of the coalition's favor, though I still think the coalition is heavily favored. So that shit is done for now. We'll go to the cup, and we draw Empire Land 2. We can't use that, so we'll hold on to it for a second, and we'll draw another shit. And this is Coalition Land 1, which means everything on the Coalition side can activate. So this is kind of the big activation for the Coalition, and what it will really mean is, for any of the units without a leader or a crappy leader, this is their only real move they're going to get, so they're going to have to use it, do the best thing that they think they can do, and then future Coalition activations will be with the other leaders. So you have to decide, do you want to activate a leader now? knowing that you're going to have to do an attrition check on the second activation. Um, but we'll see how that goes. This is going to take me a little bit longer to process. When we get back, we'll see the aftermath. Probably going to see some major movement down here. Potentially going to see some stuff down here. All through here. Who knows what is going to happen. We'll see. Okay, here we are after the big coalition activation. So we have now seen this yellow marker denotes a Spanish control marker. The Spanish did come across the border. Kleber has retreated and successfully evaded back several times, with Perpignan captured by the Spanish and Toulouse. They didn't have enough movement points to really start sieging, but they are there, preparing the siege. And then, uh, here we have the Portuguese moving up. We had a stack in Saragossa. They're kind of forming up around here to be able to start moving. I'm sorry, the guy in Saragossa went over here to kind of protect the rear flank of the Spanish. He'll kind of loop around here shortly. And then we're starting to move different units up to be able to push on Bayonne. Over here, Württemberg moved through Provence. Several attempts to siege down Montpellier, but all failed. So he's got a siege +2 marker, so he's going to get it soon. Coley left Turin and left a detachment for supply in the mountains and is now here. So he's going to probably keep moving here shortly to help drive north. Along this salient, the Austrians actually pulled back a little bit, but we did have the Teschen army, the Army of the Rhine, come up and grab some of these German minor state detachments. So he's building up a force, a potent force. We had, well, I guess I'll talk about Brunswick first. We had Brunswick. I'm knocking over my whole stack, guys. There we go. Brunswick moved here, and he has a siege 0 marker on Metz. He's got a baggage train, so he's kind of moving slowly through the woods. But he's going to look to take Metz, and then to guard his flank, we had this Austrian move through here, tried to attack Custine. Custine retreated, and he's holding there because this is the extent of his supply until Metz is taken. So a diligent move. Some of the miners, Saxony moving a force through here. We had the extra Latour Austrian stack of a couple units. Actually, just a corps and some baggage train actually moved north around the Ardennes to protect the Austrian flank. And when it came time for the great decision, I should say Brunswick and Hanover have joined up in Holland to create a little mini stack for protection. And then when the time came, the great decision, does Wurmser attack the French army? I kind of sized them up and said, you know what, if Austria goes for it, they're probably going to get crushed. If they stay where they're at, the French will attack them and quite possibly defeat them in detail before the Prussian army can join up. So what have we done? Well, we've created an army group. So Wurmser retreated. He left Flanders to the mercy of the French for the moment, and left and is in a big stack with the Army of the Elbe here, which is our first army group. So just quickly to cover the rules for that, you activate the stack as one big stack, and because they're equal in step number, we're going to pick Wurmser to be the overall army commander. If they suffer a morale check, they have to check morale together. If they have to rally, they have to rally individually. There's a few other minor, things to keep in mind for an army group. But those are the big ones. And when you look at it, it's like, oh gosh, that's like 16 steps now versus, what could be at best 8 steps for the French. So it's definitely one of those situations where, to pull back to fight another day is better because we're going to come with an epic army to cause some trouble here very soon. So something to watch out for, guys, is a big, gigantic stack like that. It's going to be super dangerous against the French. So that's where it stands now. We're going to go to the Cup. and see what we get. And we're going to get Empire Land 2. So not everyone's going to activate, but most everybody, if we want them to activate, could. And I think in this case, it's definitely worthwhile to figure out, like, I think we need to do something with our French army while we can activate it a second time, maybe take some attrition, but it would be valuable to try to do something here. Maybe we take the fortresses in Flanders to slow down that big army, because they're going to have to take those back to try to get into France. Or maybe we wheel down and we try to knock out some of these guys. Do we have enough movement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We could potentially do it, but then we leave Flanders wide open and Paris not far away. So difficult decision. We'll have to decide what we want to try to do. Maybe we'll activate Kleber and cause some havoc on the part of the Spanish and see what happens. I don't know. A lot of possibilities that we could see happen. So we'll take care of that. We'll show the aftermath here in just a moment for you. Okay, one thing I forgot to do was the British activation. Whoops. What they did is they moved the big stack, and actually, I think I forgot. I need to leave the militia there. So it's the army, the Anglo-Dutch army, and Abercrombie, right? And what I'm doing is I'm dropping a depot here to remember that there's a depot here, and he stopped moving. He's going to need all his next activation movement to try to cross the Straits of Dover against this militia with Ensemble. So it's definitely a clear threat. So for the French activation, it's kind of interesting. We had our force with Kleber. He chanced possibly being intercepted by the Spanish army. They did not get him. He came over, went to Perpignan, captured it, thus putting these guys out of supply, which I guess I should put a marker if these guys are going to activate out of supply, unless these guys do something to stop Kleber, which is feasible. So he swooped in and took it back and reactivated the fortress with a step. So the French, set up. It's not quite a trap. It's more incidental than anything, but they're going to try to do something there. And then over here, we had Custine run down and take Lyon back, and he reactivated the fortress, which leaves him with just a cavalry corps, which is kind of a dangerous spot to be in, but we needed to do something before more of the coalition forces could aggregate. We left Dijon with Dumouriez, and he was going to attack the Austrians. They retreated. He attacked the Prussians, and we had a Valmy. So we had a big fight that both sides caused 2 step losses to each other, and rather than have it go a second round, which would be too bloody, that's when we played the Valmy card and we forced the Prussians to lose. They did succeed on their morale check, so Dumouriez is currently like playing 2v1 basketball right now, but he did keep Metz from falling, which was important. And then otherwise, we did activate Hope in our French army. He did take Antwerp, didn't have enough movement to go for Liege. He avoided attrition, and he's sitting in Brussels in a central position. But, if the British come over, he's going to have to figure something out. So it's all really dicey at the moment in terms of, like, what can we expect to have happen? What are going to be the next steps for the coalition? So far, I think the French are in a pretty good position. They're trying to make some headway over here with Lyon so that they can get the full production when we have summer and the levee en masse triggers, and we get a bunch of stuff. We get even more stuff onto the board. So there we go. That's that. We'll go to the cup now to see what happens next. And we draw neutral land, which is almost pointless. So we'll just go to the next one. And we get coalition land 3, which broadly means Not everything can activate, but several more guys can potentially activate for the second time, their final activation, if they're willing to take attrition. So we'll see what happens here. The Spanish are going to have to try to do something, and then elsewhere, it's going to be a matter of the coalition uh, pushing harder than they have been to try to make some ground. So we'll see what happens. Okay, here we are after the Coalition Land 3. It's a little bit of a bummer because when I start putting these control markers or activation markers on the stacks, you can't tell who's who quite as easy. So um, Ricardo's came back and has retaken Perpignan, getting himself back in the supply. There's some attrition involved, but they're kind of secure again. Montpellier was captured by Württemberg, who then chased after the French stack that was running around and actually eliminated it, and then is beginning a siege of Toulouse again, for better or for worse. But you can see, we're kind of making progress there. We decided not to move Coley up because he just doesn't have enough strength on his own. He's going to need help from the south before he moves forward. And then in the north, we do have Bulow that came and has captured Dijon, but he's basically very weak, and technically I think he is actually still out of supply because he's gone beyond the supply that can stretch from the east here or even through the forest, but he can kind of sit in the fort if he wants to. We still have the Rhine army with Teschen slowly moving through the forest to make a big break for Paris at some point. These guys, instead of activating, Brunswick received some more reinforcements from the Saxons. And so these guys are kind of stalemated, but again, in terms of maneuver, it can't, Dumouriez can't fight too many guys at once. So if we can get him to activate, he may leave Metz, come down here, take care of this, zoom back up. He might be able to do that. Our big army group of the Austrians and the Prussians came down, and Hoch was able to evade away until they ran out of steam and movement points, sitting on top of Lille, but not enough movement points to do a siege action on Lille. So kind of a bummer for them, and they took some attrition along the way. Latour is kind of bringing up the flank, and then the Dutch army has moved to try to take Antwerp back. So they're besieging that at the moment. The other activation I've not done yet is, I can't because he's a 2. Never mind. So, boy, the French are feeling the pressure, right? They're coming in from all sides, and we're just barely holding something together. A very active defense is going to be needed to fend these guys off. And we haven't drawn a single winter's quarters chit yet, so not a big impact there. We're going to draw the next chit, and we get the big French activation 1 marker, which means everything on the French side can activate, and boy, we're going to have to figure something out. Very active defense is going to be needed to do anything at this point. I think we've got a couple possible ways we could turn this around. I do think that the flank of this army could maybe be circumvented. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then attack, and he's out of supply. So that's something we could maybe try, though I'm a little nervous about it. I don't know. So we'll see what happens, guys. Everybody on the French side can activate, and we'll see what happens. Okay, here we are after the big French activation. I think our challenge was that our army was done. So we shuffled some units around. We got some strength in Boulogne to deal with the potential crossing of the British at some point, which we expect to have happen, just to make it a little bit harder for them. We couldn't quite do anything here. The activation was over. So, I've got an idea to come around, but it's not going to work right now. Dumouriez tried to take out this Austrian force, but they managed to maneuver away. He did retake Dijon and then moved back up over here. And then we had this stack try to come up and take out this Austrian unit, but he just keeps slipping away. Um, and we've thought it better to stick in Lyon for the moment. So a lot of maneuvering around. Over here, I should show Houchard moved from Bayonne and actually eliminated Württemberg's stack here in Toulouse, and Toulouse is no longer under threat. That will always have this Spanish army to worry about. And then we brought down a stack from Rochefort to Bayonne just to kind of help guard the way. So still very tense, very difficult to figure out like what's the best move. The French are eagerly awaiting for the next turn when they can get their production and kind of get a replenishment on the board. That's going to be really important to fend off these stacks. They're still huge stacks, but you can see, I mean, with an activation over, we don't have to fear for several of these stacks for the rest of the turn. So I think France has done enough to basically survive and get the benefits of the levee en masse. They're really going to want that Carnot card because the lack of assault unit bonuses is really detracting from their ability to operate well. So let's pull the next cup, or tip from the cup, rather. And we get French Naval 1. Now, I'm not sure what all I want to do with this. Could certainly try to blockade somewhere. Could try to contest the British Navy, though that might be a bad idea, but it would keep Abercrombie from being able to come over the straits, which I think is maybe a valuable thing to attempt. So let me think on this, and we'll figure it out. If we do decide to have some actual naval combat, I will show that on the camera. Okay, so I realized, probably what I should have done in previous turns is when the neutral naval came up before Britain was in the game, they should have just put their fleets out in more annoying places for the French to deal with. But to me, there's some sort of gaminess in that, right? Like, they're neutral. Are they really at war? I mean, maybe they'd have fleets patrolling the Atlantic and the Bay of Biscay anyway. I don't know. But either way, the French do have an opportunity to be disruptive here. It's important because the next chit that could come out, or that will eventually probably come out, is the Coalition Land 2 marker, which would enable Abercrombie to try to make a channel crossing up here in the top right to the continent. The only way to stop that is by having French units, French fleets in the channel. Now, dangerous proposition for them, but they have to try because Abercrombie getting over there is going to just prove to be maybe the straw that's going to break the camel's back of the French defense, and so they've got to try. Now, naval fleet markers, whatever, tend to have 8 movement points, so they can get pretty far. I've done a little bit of shuffling where, like, I've had a unit go into port, I've had a different unit come out, integrate, but basically this stack is going to move into the channel. So they have enough movement points to get there, and that's not going to be the problem. The thing will be, and we haven't covered this yet, where it can be 3 fleets in a stack, basically, in any given place for your side. So we're going to move these 3 into the channel where there are 3 British ships waiting for them, so to speak. So everyone's matching the stacking limits. There's a few British ships in a port, which that's legal at this point. And so that's sort of step 1. You spend your movement points, you move your fleets as a stack. You can integrate fleets that like you move through or with for a movement point. But again, eight's a lot. You can get pretty far around the map, as a fleet with 8 movement points. So their goal is to get into the channel, which they've done. And now there's an interception possibility. So the British automatically get a shot at this because a fleet is moving into a sea zone that they already occupy. This interception is pretty straightforward. It's a 2d6, and you need a 10, right? A 10 tends to be the way this stuff works. And we're going to add the maneuver factor of the highest ranked fleet. So I know we're a little bit at an angle here a little bit. see if I can zoom in a little bit more. So we have these guys. The highest ranked is really any of them. They're all basically the same, but it's a 3. So we got a 2d6 plus 3 to the die roll. And sorry, I got to mess with the lighting. I accidentally made the picture a little too dark. There you go. All right, so it's 2d6 plus 3. This is a pretty reasonable chance of getting the interception. And I rolled a 6 plus 3 is 9, which is not enough. So now these guys are all in here. Now, again, in a normal opposed game, these fleets would actually be flipped over like so. So nobody would know the strengths or the capabilities of these fleets. Because I'm playing solitaire, there's no reason to obfuscate. Weirdly, that also means there's no reason to buy dummy fleet markers, which you can use to kind of obfuscate things even further by having a dummy counter. I don't know how to get around that. I mean, there's ways I could try to trick myself, but that seems silly. So I'm just going to play them, face up and you know, try not to think too hard about what the enemy has versus what we need to achieve. Try to maintain an objective oriented mindset regardless of what is actually present in a sea zone. But either way, the French need to stop the crossing, at least need to make the waters unsafe. So they've managed to get in there. The die roll just barely failed for the British to intercept, and I think that's the only shot that they get. Um, and yeah, I don't think we have to cause a combat, so I think we're fine to just stop. Um, Now, what's going to happen next is if we pull the coalition naval marker, they will have opportunities to try to find the French fleet in the channel, right? So there's a little bit of an abstraction there. So they'll have a chance to do it. And then the other thing we'll try to do is we're also going to send a fleet out. Let's see, I got to zoom out so you guys can see this, but moving a fleet from the Mediterranean up to here. Gibraltar doesn't work like it does in World War II games. You can go past Gibraltar, that's okay. At least I'm pretty sure you can. I couldn't find a rule that says you can't. So these guys are going to just leave the Med and come up here to protect the coast. We've already lost the south of France to the coalition for right now. So this seems like the best move we can make with limited fleet resources. And that's it for the French naval impulse. So we're going to go back to the cup and see what we get. And we get, sure enough, the coalition naval marker. So let's see, what else can be done here? I think what we would want to do is, let's see. I think what we actually want to do. Let me see how this is going to work. We're going to have one fleet move out to the North Atlantic for now, and then we're going to have Nelson move out to sea. I don't think the French would want to try to intercept, but now. Let's see. So if they're here, they're going to seek to start a naval combat, and the French would need to avoid. If the French try to avoid, they can move to a friendly harbor in the same area or move their fleet to an adjacent sea zone. So basically, there's enough, when you have the activation, you have enough, I guess, ability to say, hey, I'm going to opt for combat. I don't need to try to intercept. Um, the target's fleet can attempt to avoid combat. Okay. Yeah, I think I don't know. Do the French try to get away? I think the French are thinking, let's try to fight. Let's see if we can get really lucky. I bet they won't, but let's see if we can get lucky. So how naval combat works is that for each fleet present, you get a d6, and then you add to the d6 die roll their tactics rating. And the tactics rating is this third value here on the counter. So a 2, a 0 for the French. For the British, it's 3, 2, and a 1. So it's easier in my mind just to make this a total. Because what you do is you roll, you add up everything, and then you make a comparison between the sides. So really functionally for the French, it's 3d6 plus 4, and then for the British, it's 3d6 plus 6. So there's an advantage of 2 to the British, which means, yeah, they're more likely to win, but it's still a pretty wide range there. So I only got 2 dice with me, so I'll have to do this a little wonkily. But we'll do the French first. So we'll do the 2d6, and then we'll roll again, and then we'll add 4 to that, and that will be their total. So 2d6. Ooh, boxcars. Boxcars. So 12 plus another die of 2. So 14 plus 4 is 18. That's a strong roll. 18 for the French. British, 6, 7, and then so 30. So what did I say? 18 to 13 is what it's going to be. Did I get that right? Okay, so I had to double check, make sure I got it right. 18 to 13 is a great victory for the French, dramatically so. So when we look at how to look at this, so each side tallies their total and compares it to the other. If the difference is between 1 and 3, the losing side retreats with no losses. The second is what matters here. If the difference is between 4 and 7, which it is, it's 5, right? 18 to 13. The losing side eliminates one fleet, and the surviving fleets retreat. So let me see. Okay. Okay. I think I'm going to end up having some significant things actually matter here for the order of operations. Um, so technically, you guys will see why I'm saying this. These guys that were in the Med hadn't moved yet. They couldn't because the Bay of Biscay was full. So they moved into the fleet that was in the Bay of Biscay moved into the channel. Make sure I get this right. Okay, so the British have to eliminate a fleet. I guess we can pick. I'm going to say we lose Cornwallis because he's the weakest of the fleets. Okay. Oh, never mind. Okay, so they have to retreat. So they'll retreat to a port, and then our other French fleet goes to the Bay of Biscay. That's fine. And now there's a French fleet that has won the channel. Future Napoleon is just freaking out right now, but the French don't have any capability to cross into Britain. Wouldn't want to at this point, but that's significant. A significant action here. The British attacked, figuring they had the advantage, and they did, but rolling 2 boxcars, that's hard to beat, and the French fleet has managed to, even with Nelson involved, has to beat a retreat back to port, which leaves Abercrombie's force in Dover unable to cross the channel to engage our Boulogne defense. So wow. All right. Let's see. Any other things we want to take care of there? Are there other fleets that we want to leverage? I think there is. There still might be a chance for the British to do something here. So I think they're going to have the Gibraltar fleet go. Let's see if we can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're going for it again with a different fleet. Is this the way that these activations are supposed to go? I think so. I think you activate each one as you go. As far as I know, so they have another crack at it. Basically, they have another. It's not as good. It's not as good. And oh my gosh. Okay. All right, guys. There goes a die. I forgot something important. I forgot something important. And I feel dumb, but the weather gauge card is a card that the coalition player has. Every fleet of one squadron gains a +3 combat bonus during the first round. Would that have been enough to make a difference? Probably. So we're going to try again. Maybe we thought we didn't need that card. We'd use it under a different circumstance. We're going to go do it, and we're going to try again. We're going to try again. The British don't know, or the French don't know that we have that card. So that's going to make a difference. Now, what I'm not sure about is it says gains a +3 combat bonus during the first round. A +3 combat bonus. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure this out. I guess it's just you add it to the existing tactical bonus, which kind of makes it unfair. This weather gauge makes it unfair, I think. Okay, so let's try it out. We've got 3d6 plus 4. Let's see, 8, 10, so 14 for the French. And we are playing we are going to have the weather gauge card played. Right, every fleet of one squadron, every fleet, so each counter gains a +3 combat bonus. So this is, I don't know if this overrides the tactical bonus or it's added to it. It sounds like it's added to it, which feels overpowered, right? It feels awfully overpowered. So it's really, I mean, if that's +3, each fleet, I mean, that's functionally a +9 of the total die roll. All right, I rolled low. 4, 9, +6, 15, plus another 9, 24 to 14. The difference is a 10. We eliminate 2 fleets and the surviving fleet retreats. Okay. And we'll just stick this guy, in this port. Catastrophic. The other thing we need to do is we need to roll for naval leader death. So after each battle, roll a 2d6 for each admiral that was sunk. So we need to roll for the British guy. On a 12, the admiral is killed. No, he's not dead. The French guys are not dead. But there goes most of the French fleet. And unfortunately, this means that... And there goes the weather gauge card, I guess. The way is open for the British to move across. Now, are there any other fleet movement things that we want to do? Well, we could use the Spanish fleet, and maybe I just do that very quickly. We say, one. Well, not sure how this works. I guess you have to activate each squadron individually. So what I'll do is I'll just start with sending some fleets out to sea and then we'll eventually be able to attack that other French fleet as well in the future. So we're going to destroy the French Navy, probably, is what's going to happen. Okay, that's it for the British, or the, yeah, well, we'll call it British, the coalition naval impulse. So the French had it, but they failed. We'll go to the cup. And we pull Empire Land 3. I don't know, we can't use that one. We need a different shit. I'll set it aside. And we get neutral naval. Nothing to do there. Going back. We haven't drawn winter quarters yet at all. Okay, Coalition Land 4. Now, unfortunately, there's no leader on the board that has a 4 activation rating on the Coalition side now. Vermser is flipped to his Army Commander side, and it's a lower activation rating. So I think that's just a dead shit, honestly, for the Coalition. So we'll pull again. And we get Empire Land 3. Is there anything that the French can do? Well, maybe. Activation over, first activation. We could do something with these guys down here. There's not much to do. I could try to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, that's not going to do enough. First activation. Nothing that we can really do with him. I think that's a dead shit too. There's nothing more we can really do, except wait for Abercrombie to cross. We pull. All right, there it goes. So the last 2 chits come out as Coalition Land 2, and then we pull Winter Quarters, which is the last chit. So amusingly, everything got played this turn. Let me see what there is to do with the Coalition Land 2. The one thing we are for sure going to try is a crossing with Abercrombie's army, which could prove pretty decisive. Okay, here we are after the activation. So we have just a couple of updates. The Spanish have defeated a force at Bayonne and are now sieging, though they did not succeed in the siege. And then in the north, we did have Abercrombie's army come across. They did a step loss to this militia, which has retreated back, and then they stopped right here. The French army tried to intercept and didn't, but then the British army did not move forward because I think the French would win this fight against the British 1-1, and I doubt that the Prussians would succeed in the march to guns. So we're kind of we're going to wait here because on the next turn these guys are going to be able to come down and probably thrash the French, unless this production phase becomes super useful. We'll see how it goes. So that's it for the spring activations phase of 1793. The next thing that's going to be important when we go to the summer of 1793 is that we'll do the levee on masse, and then we'll likely have the terror card having to be played, and it's going to put a new spin on the situation. It's definitely tough. I feel like there's only so much that can be done now for either side, really. So as we, as usual, start to take these activation markers away to get a real, true look at the game situation. The revolution has retaken Lyon, which is important, but they're again assailed on all sides, and very often the French are basically having to fight 2-on-1 or worse much of the time, which is a tremendous challenge. Also, there's something with the stacking rules I'm not sure about. It seems like you can't have minors of different majors, like minor allies of different major powers stacked together. It seems like you can't. So I had this bigger stack, this Dutch army with Hanoverian and Brunswick guys. I don't think I could have the Brunswick guys with them. and I'm not 100% sure about Hanover because it says minor countries can stack with major powers and vice versa, and leaders can control vice versa, but it doesn't say an allied minor power to an allied minor power. Um, so if it's a strict reading of the rules, it seems to imply that you cannot stack. So there's a little bit of an issue up there in Flanders because of that, and I've separated the stack to correct that mistake, and we'll just have to play it by ear there. So there you go, guys. That's the spring activity phase of 1793. We'll be looking at the summer to come. I think maybe we'll call this a video because I think there's enough time spent in this video to be a shorter video, one that you guys can enjoy. We did cover naval stuff. The next video could be shorter. We might even get, I might abbreviate things and bang through the rest of 1793 in the next video. We'll see. So until next time, guys, take care. Keep on gaming.